Hello, and welcome back to Cayenne Pepper Commentary. I will say this was one of the less exciting weekends of football we've had so far this season, with almost every single game being a 2-score or more win, but that doesn't make it any less confusing, so let's go over our game recaps. I really thought that after his first week for this Vikings team, Carson Wentz was going to shine in this system, but boy was I wrong. To defend him as best as I can, it is incredibly difficult to pass the ball if that's just all you do. Only 11 rushing attempts compared to Wentz's 27 pass attempts on the day. Another mistake I made with the Vikings was assuming when they got Jordan Addison back, their passing game would improve since teams would no longer be able to double Justin Jefferson. Yet Wentz still missed on almost half his passes, as well as throwing a late-game interception. This game was just dominated by the Chargers offense, with the only drives where they didn't score being a missed field goal and Justin Herbert's solo interception of the game. Being able to run the ball with an aerial attack this good is just lethal, and they showed that off today. I did think that LA would win this game, but I really wasn't expecting to be in such dominant fashion. Good win to keep them above the Chiefs in the division. And there are no longer any winless teams. I really thought this game was pretty wrapped up by the start of the fourth quarter, even more so when Chase Brown gave the Bengals a 14-point lead with just 10 minutes left, but the Jets proved me wrong. Breece Hall runs in a touchdown with the Justin Fields 2-point conversion, and then the next drive, Breece Hall throws in a touchdown to give the Jets the lead. Never knew this was the quarterback they were missing. I will say, Justin Fields had a pretty solid game with a touchdown of his own, but the Jets' run game was going insane, especially in the fourth quarter. The Bengals actually played a great game offensively, but week after week, their defense keeps getting exposed. Joe Flacco can be as good as you need, and 3 rushing touchdowns will certainly help, but if your defense can't stop the Jets, I have some worries. The craziest part is they aren't even out of the playoff race, with the AFC North leading Steelers being just 2 games ahead. I think Cooper Rush may have just brought a bad mojo to this team. Tyler Huntley was dicing the Chicago defense, breaking off chunk play after chunk play, and only missing on 5 of his passes on the day. Derrick Henry looked a little similar to his older self and managed to punch in 2 short yardage touchdowns as well as holding onto the football. The Bears once again fall victim to just not being able to finish the job. They would put together solid drives, get a couple first down, and then just fizzle out. The offense didn't look terrible, just not good enough. If an offense doesn't look good enough on the Ravens defense, though, that is a pretty major red flag, because even some struggling offenses this year have been putting up major points against them. The real fall for the Bears was just poor defensive play. I get Baltimore has weapons, but you just let Tyler Huntley do that to you. So, turns out all Tua needed to do to turn his season around was get pink eye. Quarterback woke up on game day with his eyes swollen shut, proceeded to throw for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. They also finally learned how to use the 2-back system when you have a star running back and one of the best running prospects from last year's draft to boost him to 141 yards rushing on the day. I think the most disappointing part of the game was how poor the Falcons' offense played. Sure, Michael Penix was out, but let's not act like Kirk Cousins wasn't above average QB like 2 years ago. Plus, this Miami defense has been absolutely terrible. They let the Browns put 30 on them. Kirk, however, only racks up 173 yards on 21 completions and no touchdowns. Similarly to the Vikings game, though, they just couldn't get the run going, which is a lot more detrimental when your running back is one of, if not your best player. Week by week, I get more confused how this team beat the Bills. Remember when I said to be worried for when the Bills play the Panthers? Yeah, I wish I didn't remember. I think this game is proof that the circle of suck logic just does not work in professional leagues. You think the Panthers shutting out the Falcons and then the Falcons beating the Bills means that the Panthers would steamroll the Bills. But that's just so wrong. James Cook has probably one of the best games of his career, running for 200 plus yards on just 19 carries, averaging 11.4 yards a carry, as well as getting 2 of the Bills' 5 touchdowns. Josh Allen's game wasn't fantastic, not that it needed to be, but he also got a passing touchdown on top of another 2 on the ground. For the Panthers, I think this game really solidifies that this is a different team from last year. They looked infinitely worse with Andy Dalton at the helm, to the point that even their stellar run game suffered. Bryce Young will hopefully return next week, but as of writing this on Tuesday, he's day-to-day. Despite San Francisco getting a few of their weapons back, this offense still looks shaky. They could not move the ball the entire first half, which forced them to become one-dimensional in half two. Mac Jones is a decent showing, but against one of the best defenses in the NFL right now, it just wasn't enough. The 49ers' injury problems were also glaring on the defensive side, with C.J. Stroud torching their secondary for over 300 yards. When you're missing two of the best pass rushers in the league on your defense, there just isn't much to do, and despite Stroud underperforming most of the year, he's still a solid quarterback, especially with time in the pocket. I do feel bad for the 49ers, because if they could keep this whole team healthy, they'd be a problem, because they still managed to be a problem without them, but losing games like this that they would win with everyone just hurts them down the stretch with playoff seeding. Allow us to hold a moment of silence for the fallen Cam Skattebo. I normally don't find myself having favorite players outside of my favorite team, but watching Skattebo this year has been electric, and to see him go down like that just hurts. I think losing him also crushed the morale of this Giants team. What was a close game at halftime kind of got away from them as the second half progressed. As if rubbing it in their faces, the Eagles also ran for a collective 279 yards, with Saquon accounting for 150 of those alone. Jalen Hurts finished most of these drives, however, collecting 4 touchdown passes on the day, despite throwing for less than 200 yards. Barkley did end up also leaving the game at one point after a 28-yard carry with an apparent groin injury, so Philly did not escape unscathed. Huge division win to tie the series, and hoping for a speedy recovery of the human tank. I am all aboard the Drake May MVP train at this point. The Browns, despite their struggles this year, have one of the best defenses in the league, and Drake May just cut through it like a hot knife through butter. He's now up to 5 games with a 135 or more QBR, making this season, up to this point, a top 10 season ever from a QBR standpoint. I used to be an avid Patriots hater during their Brady days, but watching Drake May just makes me so happy to see someone excelling when given proper coaching and care. Unfortunately, on the flip side, you have the opposite of that with the Cleveland Browns, where young quarterbacks are ruined. Doesn't help that they're just unable to get the run game going, forcing Gabriel to throw the ball and inevitably making several costly mistakes. I find it fascinating how the Browns still aren't out of the playoff race, similarly to the Bengals, with just how bad the AFC North is. I guess my prediction last week about them giving Tyler Shuck a shot came true. A shame that this team's struggles have nothing to do with the quarterback position. First-year head coach Kellen Moore decides to put Shuck in during the second half just for the rookie to QB to throw an interception on his first drive. His stat line does not look much better than Rattler's, if at all, with just 2 more completions on 9 more passes, but it was announced Monday that the Saints are going to move into next week with Rattler at the starter. The Buccaneers' offense was actually a pretty large non-factor in this game, scoring just 1 touchdown on top of 3 field goals. But when your defense can force turnovers like this, your offense can be a little stagnant. Huge break for a very beat-up Tampa Bay. Yeah, there's only so much the Titans could have done. The Colts are absolutely rolling thanks to this high-powered offense, with Jonathan Taylor now projected to have an 1,800-yard season with 26 touchdowns. He continues to shine with a 153-yard game on the ground this week and 2 touchdowns, one of those being for 80 yards. With a ground game that deadly, it just opens the floodgates for the air, with Daniel Jones bombing this Titans defense for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own. For the first quarter of the game, you assumed that the Titans could maybe keep up, but by the fourth, this game was just a blowout. Cam Ward throws another interception in the loss, as I feel more and more bad for him every week. Can someone please remind me why the Titans fired Vrabel? I don't think I have given Denver nearly enough attention in my videos. They currently have one of the best records in the league and are leading a star-studded AFC West. Bo Nix looked legit in this game despite his interception, throwing for almost 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their run game also looked stellar, with J.K. Dobbins running for over 100 yards on the day. I was a major Dak Prescott defender, and despite this game, I still remain one. I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, but I don't think Dak deserves to take the flack for their performance when he consistently is a top statistical performer. He does look abysmal in this loss, though, missing on 12 of his passes and throwing for 2 interceptions without a touchdown. I wonder what people would say if he and Mahomes switched teams for a year, but unfortunately we'll just never get to see. Aaron Rodgers is sadly unable to join the club of quarterbacks who have beaten every single team. Not that he had a bad game by any measure, with over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they really just got outplayed in that fourth quarter. Pittsburgh entered the fourth with a 5-point lead, granted with the Packers on their 3-yard line. After that, it just fell apart, and on the drive they needed points the most. A Kenneth Gainwell fumble made another 3 points for Green Bay. Jordan Love had a fantastic game against his predecessor, throwing for more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the win. Like I said, Pittsburgh really just got outplayed. Green Bay continues to be the most shaky 5-1 team I've seen in a while, but it doesn't matter what I think, as long as they're getting wins. Monday Night Football, and I just think too many people are overhyping this Kansas City win. I could just be a hater, but they admittedly blew out a pretty weak Commanders team. Commanders team missing its starting quarterback and starting running back. Mahomes threw 2 picks on the day, with Kelsey being the cause of another Mahomes interception, and they didn't really muster up anything in the first. I do think the Chiefs are good this year. I'm not saying they're terrible and are gonna miss the playoffs. They'll probably still have a pretty good playoff run, but so many people are praising this game as the return of last year's Chiefs when they just looked okay. Maybe they go on and win the rest of their games just to make me look stupid, but I'm seeing this team go 11-6, maybe 12-5 at best. I went 8-5 this week, a better performance than some in the past, but slightly worse than last week's 10-5. This moves my record on the year to 74, 46-1. I might start a weekly poll where I let you guys predict the games and have a fan record go along with me, but I'll have to look into the logistics of that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week on Cayenne Pepper Commentary.